What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'll be taking a look at the entry list for the 2024 Grant Park 165 at the Chicago Street Course. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going by starting to talk about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. This one once again be driven by Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain's had a very solid but not as good year as previous years in the Cup Series, but Ross Chastain has been very solid, as I believe he still is currently in the top 10 in the regular season points. Ross is still looking for his first win of the 2024 season. He'll be looking to get it done. Trackhouse has some pretty good pace for speed. He looks to get it done this weekend at Chicago. Up next, how about the 2 car for Team Penske? This will once again be driven by Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric has been very inconsistent throughout 2024, but he's looking to have a rebound run after a not great run at National Superspeedway. He looks to have a great run this weekend and is looking to get his second win in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Austin Cindric, with how good he's been as a road course racer, we'll see what he can do this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next, how about the 3 car for Richard Childress Racing? This one once again be driven by Austin Dillon. Now, last year, Austin Dillon was up front competing for the win before hitting the inside wall very hard, going down the front straightaway. Austin Dillon has struggled immensely throughout 2024 and is looking for a massive rebound this weekend. We'll see what he can do this weekend at Chicago, though I'm not really expecting much because Austin Dillon is really not that great of a road racer. Up next, how about the 4 car for Stewart-Haas Racing? This will once again be driven by Josh Berry. Josh Berry, historically, has not been the best road course racer out there. Generally, in the few road course races we've ran so far this year, he hasn't ran that great, and I really don't expect much to change considering when Ronnie Cho's been the crew chief for road course races, they haven't gone very well, unfortunately. I'm not expecting much from Josh Berry this weekend, though he will be looking to try to find a job going into 2025. Up next, how about the 5 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson comes into this weekend as a regular season points leader by 20 points over Chase Elliott. He's looking to get his second road course victory in 2024 and become just the first driver to have 4 wins in the 2024 season. Larson's a pretty good road racer, was up front last year. He'll be looking to pick up his 4th win of 2024 this weekend at Chicago. Will also run double duty as well. Up next, how about the 6 car for RFK Racing? This will once again be driven by Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski started the year off kind of inconsistent. Then he's improved, and the last couple weeks have not gone so well for Brad. But I do think Brad may have an okay run, but let's be real, Brad Keselowski's been very inconsistent on the road courses. He looks to have a good run this weekend. Run up front, contend. He'll be looking to get that second win of 2024 this weekend at Chicago. Up next, how about the 7 car for Spire Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Corey LaJoie. Corey LaJoie has been very disappointing throughout the 2024 season and is looking for a rebound run at Chicago. I'm really not expecting much. Spire has been very inconsistent. We'll see what Corey LaJoie can do, and we'll see if Corey LaJoie can have a solid good performance with the Spire Motorsports group this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next, how about the 8 car for Richard Childress Racing? This will once again be driven by Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has been very unlucky over the course of the last 4 or 5 weeks, but last week in Nashville, he really showed me at the end some really good pace or speed. I think Kyle Busch is actually going to have a pretty solid run. They've got a pretty good road course program over at the 8 car. We obviously know they use a lot of the notes from when Tyler Reddick drove for this team. I expect Kyle Busch to have a chance and opportunity for maybe a top 10 for sure at the Chicago Street Course. Up next, how about the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott continues to have every single finish in the Cup Series inside of the top 20 through the first 19 races, which is super impressive. And I expect that to continue this weekend with how good of a road racer Chase Elliott is. While I don't know if he's the biggest threat for the win this weekend, I think he's going to have a good chance and opportunity for top 5 and top 10 because I do believe he finished in the top 5 last year at Chicago. We'll see what Chase Elliott can do, and we'll see if he can have a good run this weekend at the street course. Up next, out with the 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. This will once again be driven by Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson is looking for redemption. Last year in this race, he wrecked 2 or 3 times, had the Baconator car, and just nothing went right for this number 10 team, or the number 42 team last year that he drove for. He's looking to rebound this weekend. Maybe we'll see some good runs. I'm not sure if it's going to happen. We'll see if Noah Gragson can have a good run this weekend at Chicago. Up next, up the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This will once again be driven by Denny Hamlin. Now, Denny Hamlin qualified very well in this race last year, but unfortunately, he crashed out and really took himself out of contention early in this event. Denny Hamlin's looking for a rebound run. He probably should have won National this past week. It was really fast there. I expect the Toyotas to be super quick and super fast. We'll see what Denny Hamlin can do with Joe Gibbs Racing this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next, up with the 12th car for Team Penske. This one once going to be driven by Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney has been getting a lot faster throughout the second half of the year, and I feel like for Ryan Blaney, the road course speed that he had in 2022 is starting to return, because last time we raced at a road course at Sonoma, Ryan Blaney finished very well. I think Ryan Blaney is going to have a solid performance this week, and I think a top 10 is in order, as Ryan Blaney looks to continue to build some playoff points as well. He looks to have a good run this weekend at Chicago. Up next, how about the 13 car for Kaulig Racing? This will once again be driven by AJ Allmendinger, who will make his second start in this 13th seat in 2024. AJ Allmendinger is a very solid road course racer and will be doing double duty, as of course he competes full-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He's looking for a fantastic and really strong run with the Kaulig Racing team and organization this weekend. He looks to get his first Cup Series win of the 2024 season this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next, how about the 14 car for Stewart-Haas Racing? This will once again be driven by Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe is a very underrated road course racer, and I do think he could have a very good performance this weekend with the 14 team. I think he's the most likely SHR car to run up front and contend for the overall win. He's looking for his first win since Phoenix in 2022. We'll see what he can do this weekend at Chicago. Up next, how about the 15 car for Rick Ware Racing? This will once again be driven by Kaz Grala. Kaz Grala, in my opinion, is a pretty solid road course racer. In Xfinity, especially last year, was a pretty big contender there with Sam Hunt Racing. I think the Kaz Grala is going to be an underdog for a top 10 or top 15 run potentially. I think the speed is going to be there. The Rick Ware cars have shown a lot more pace as of late. I think Kaz Grala does a pretty good job this weekend at Chicago. Up next, how about the 16 car for Kaulig Racing? This will once again be driven by Shane Van Gisbergen, who will make his 5th Cup start of 2024. Now, SVG coming in this race is the defending winner and has to be one of the favorites going in this event, not just to win the Cup race, but the Xfinity Series race as well. I think SVG is going to be a major threat and contender for the win and the victory. He's got a really nice look at Wendy's scheme for the weekend. We'll see what SVG can do this weekend at Chicago as he looks to go back-to-back and get his second career Cup win. Up next, how about the 17 car for RFK Racing? This will once again be driven by Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher somehow finds a way to always run up front at road courses. While his teammate Brad Keselowski hasn't ran that great, Chris Buescher, I think, is actually going to run pretty good this weekend. He's been pretty good on road courses in the Next Gen era. I think he's only had one finish outside the top 10 in the Next Gen era. I think he's going to continue that streak this weekend at Chicago. Up next, how about the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? This will once again be driven by Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. has been very unlucky over the course of the last 5 or 6 weeks. He's had pace and speed, but he hasn't really had the finishes to back it up. He's looking for a good run this weekend at Chicago. He didn't run that great last year at this track. He looks to make sure he locks himself into playoffs. He's getting close to locking his way in on points. Martin Truex Jr. looks for a good run this weekend at Chicago Street Course with the 19 organization. Up next, how about the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? This will once again be driven by Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell has arguably had the fastest car in the last month or so. He just hasn't all the finishes to show for. He probably should have won Gateway. He won the Coke 600. He probably should have won last week in Nashville. He's looking to continue the run. And he's a pretty good road racer as well. He, of course, won at Daytona and has been up front at a lot of road course races as well. I do think that Christopher Bell could have a pretty good run for sure this weekend at Chicago. Up next, how about the 21 car for the Wood Brothers? This will once again be driven by Harrison Burton. Harrison Burton's bad season unfortunately continues. We know most likely he will not be back in the seat in 2025. He's just looking for some momentum at this point. It's been a rough year for the 21 team. He's looking just to not crash out at this point. But sadly, I think Harrison Burton somehow in some way will find a way in a wreck this weekend at Chicago. Up next, how about the 22 car for Team Penske? This will once again be driven by Joey Logano. Joey Logano will be running double duty this weekend as he will replace Hailie Deegan in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race and is also coming off of winning at the National Super Speedway this past weekend in one of the most chaotic and crazy races. Logano's looking for a fantastic run with the 22 team and organization. He's been very inconsistent on road courses, was fast as Sonoma before they made a bad pit strategy call. Logano looks for a good run this weekend. Up next, up with the 23 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace is coming off of a much-needed run this past weekend in Nashville, but unfortunately, he is pretty much in a must-win situation. And Bubba Wallace has been very inconsistent on road courses, but he has shown a little bit of improvement over the course of the last few years. We also know he's very close signing extension with 2311 Racing. Bubba Wallace will once again be in this 23 car and looks to have a fantastic, great run with 2311 this weekend. Up next, how about the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by William Byron. Now, William Byron has had a bad stretch of races very recently, but we're going to type of track where he runs well, and that is road courses. He won a Circuit Americas earlier this year, and he's looking for his first win since I believe Martinsville not too long ago. He's looking for that 4th win of the season, trying to become the first driver to have 4 wins in 2024. He looks to get that done this weekend at Chicago. Up next, how about the 31 car for Colleague Racing? This will once again be driven by Daniel Hemrick. Daniel Hemrick picked up his 3rd top 10 finish of the 2024 season, but his future also is very uncertain throughout the rest. There's a chance he may not be in the seat with Zane Smith potentially replacing him. He is looking for a good run this weekend. He's working with Colleague once again. He's been very inconsistent, but he is also a pretty decent road course racer. He looks to have a good run at Chicago. Up next, up with the 33 car for Richard Childress Racing. They are going to be entering a 3rd car this weekend for the 4th time this year, and they're going to be bringing Austin Hill behind the wheel of this seat. We were thinking Will Brown was going to get a chance, but we now know Austin Hill will make his 3rd Cup start of 2024. Now, Austin Hill, I think, is actually a pretty decent road racer, and I think he will have a chance to win the Xfinity Series race, but the 33 car has been having some mechanical issues in pretty much every race that it's ran. We'll see what Austin Hill can do, but I'm not expecting him to be a contender this weekend at Chicago in the Cup Series. Up next, how about the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell is just looking for some momentum currently at this moment. He's been extremely inconsistent this year, but we're going to type of track where he runs well, which is the road courses. And remember earlier this year at Sonoma, he finished in 2nd. I think Michael McDowell is actually going to be somewhat of a threat and contender for the win. He's looking to steal away into the playoffs, looking to become the 12th driver to lock their way into the playoffs. Michael McDowell will be looking for a fantastic and really strong run with Front Row Motorsports this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. The 34 team looks for a great run. Up next, up the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Todd Gillen. Todd Gillen has been showing a lot more speed and a lot more momentum in the second half of the regular season. While he's not in a great position in points, he's looking to become the leader of Front Row Motorsports as Michael McDowell departs the team. He's been showing that recently. He's got the pacer speed. He looks for fantastic and great runs and will be looking to have a very strong and good run this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next, up with the 41 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. This will once again be driven by Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece is coming off having a fantastic run in Nashville, finishing inside the top 5. But outside of a top 5 run, which is his best finish he's ever had at SHR, it has just not been a good year for Ryan Preece. Likely out of this team and likely a free agent and probably not even Cup at all next year. He is looking for a good run, looking to build a lot of momentum, and wants to have a great run with SHR this weekend at Chicago. Up next, up with the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek has not had a great year. He's had some good performances, has 3 or 4 top 10s, but really has been very inconsistent, and the runs have not been there a lot this season. He is looking for a great run, unfortunately. I just don't expect the Legacy cars to have really the pace or speed. We'll see what John Hunter Nemechek can do with Legacy Motor Club this weekend. Up next, up with the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by Eric Jones. Eric Jones did not run well here last year. Got involved in, I think, multiple incidents and multiple wrecks, and I just think he's unfortunately not going to run that great. He's not been the greatest road racer in previous years. I really don't expect much. I think Eric Jones is sadly going to struggle this weekend at the Chicago Street Course with Legacy Motor Club. Up next, how about the 45 car for 2311 Racing? This one once again be driven by Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick, in my opinion, is probably one of the favorites going this weekend because he's an extremely good road racer. But so far this year, he just hasn't had the finishes to show for on these types of tracks. But he is coming this race, I believe, still with the most top 10s, with 11 or 12 top 10s so far this year. He's looking for a second win in 2024, but I do expect the consistency to continue. This team's looking to expand with Kurt Busch, not Kurt Busch, but someone like a Riley Herbst coming in. But Tyler Reddick will be in the 45 car once again this weekend. Up next, how about the 47 car for JTG Doherty Racing? This one once again be driven by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I expect Stenhouse to struggle this weekend. I really don't think the pace or speed is going to be there. The speed for JTG Doherty on road courses has generally not been there. I think, sadly, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. will not have a great run. I think he runs near the back of the pack. He's had some good runs, but I don't think the finish is going to be there, unfortunately, this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next, how about the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This one once again be driven by Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman, after running well for a good portion of the season, has been starting to fade back. He is currently on the cutoff line going into this weekend. And if he just has a disaster run and Bubba Wallace runs great, that cutoff line is going to get a lot closer. He's looking for a turnaround run. He's been definitely the weakest Hendrick driver this season. He is looking for a turnaround run as he looks to do very good this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next, how about the 51 car for Rickwer Racing? This will once again be driven by Justin Haley. Justin Haley, I think, could be a big sleeper pick this weekend at Chicago. He finished runner-up last year, though. A lot of that was due to pitch strategy. And I think that 51 car will have a decent run. Justin Haley's been showing a lot more pace and speed. He's had good speed on the road courses. He did get DQ'd, unfortunately, at Coda earlier in the year. He is looking for a pretty solid run. I do think the 51 car will have a solid chance and opportunity to be up front this weekend at the Chicago Street Course with Justin Haley. Up next, how about the 54 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? This one once again be driven by Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs is looking for a very, very good run. He had a great run going in Nashville, but unfortunately spun out at one point and got some damage early. I do think that Ty Gibbs will be somewhat of a threat. The JGR cars have been super quick on road courses this year, though I will say he's also been involved in some incidents like it was at Sonoma. He's looking for a great run this weekend. We'll see what Ty Gibbs can do with Joe Gibbs Racing this weekend at Chicago. Up next, how about the 60 car for RFK Racing? RFK Racing is going to enter a third car this weekend, and Joey Hand is going to be the driver. This is going to be Joey Hand's first Cup start in 2024, but he is a very solid candidate to get behind the wheel. We've seen drivers this year like Cam Waters, at one point Carl Edwards rumored, or someone like that was rumored to be coming into the seat, but we know that Joey Hand is going to be driving this weekend. He's looking for a great run. I think he's a good road racer, and I think he'll have a good chance and opportunity for maybe a top 20 at the Chicago Street Course. Up next, how about the 66 car for MBM Motorsports? This will be driven by Josh Bilicki, who I believe will make his second or third Cup start of 2024. Josh Bilicki will be doing double duty as he'll also race in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race with DGM Racing. I think he's got a decent potential, but I don't know if the MBM cars can have the pace, but I think anybody can make that car better on a road course. It is definitely Josh Bilicki. Up next, how about the 71 car for Aspire Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Zane Smith. Zane Smith is coming off having a runner-up finish this past weekend at National Super Speedway, getting a much-needed confidence booster. Zane actually had pretty good speed at Sonoma earlier this year, which is why I think he could be a sleeper pick, maybe for the win. He's looking for a fantastic run, and we'll see what Zane Smith can do as he looks to build momentum and get another top 10 and maybe steal a win this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next, how about the 77 car for Spire Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Carson Hocevar. Carson Hocevar got in a lot of trouble this past week getting into Harrison-Burton, and probably by the time you're watching this video, there might be some penalties assessed to Carson Hocevar for his over-aggressive driving, which he probably will get a points penalty for that. He's looking for a good run this weekend. He's a pretty solid road racer. I do think Carson Hocevar will have a pretty solid and good run for sure this weekend at the Chicago Street Course with the 77 team. And finally, let's talk about the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing. This, of course, will be driven by Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez is looking for a pretty good run this weekend. They haven't had really the overall pace or speed, but the one type of track the Trackhouse cars have been really great at, it is definitely this type of track being a road course and a street course as well. I do think that Daniel Suarez will be pretty much an underdog for the win in victory as he looks to get a second win in 2024. We'll see what Daniel Suarez can do with Trackhouse this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. So that is the entry list for the 2024 Grand Park 165 at the Chicago Street Course. One thing, guys, for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support my Patreon as well. Let's get some more of that and comment your thoughts below on today's video. What are your thoughts about the entry list? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Later this morning on the channel, you're going to see the entry list video for the NASCAR Xfinity Series race, the Loop 110. If any major news breaks earlier this morning, you'll see a video on that as well. Tomorrow, there's going to be a NASCAR news video and Xfinity Series race picks. We're going to talk about Hailie Deegan not being in the car this weekend at Chicago, and we got a lot of great content dropping as we head to Chicago. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.